Stay frosty and head over to EasyMutt.com for the cheapest mutt coins on the market. And when I say cheapest, I mean it. We're talking $100K for around 13 bucks. Use code DIRECTOR for 5% off. Kia ora, brothers. It's the Director. Chargers fans. Well, the Chargers did drop last week's game versus the 49ers. It is redemption week, baby. The Chargers this week will be facing up against the Seattle Seahawks in the final week of preseason. And I would say even more important than the win this week is going to be the performance of the backups. This week, I would say is more likely to see all the backups rather than any starters or anybody at an important position. We're going to see a lot of backups in Sunday's game. And this will shape the futures of a lot of these NFL players and whether or not they make the 53-man roster, if they're cut, maybe even added to the practice squad. So a lot of things are up in the air as far as the roster construction right before the season. And I think this is the last shot for our players to make a case to make the team. Now, before we do get into this one, guys, it should be a good one. As a reminder, the giveaway is going on right now. We're giving away this signed Antonio Gates jersey to one of my lucky subscribers. All you got to do to be entered for this one is hit that like and sub button and hit the link in the description. Follow the instructions there. Very easy to enter. Again, a thank you from me to you guys for supporting the channel and all the love you guys show here. Thank you, guys. Hopefully this goes to a good tone. Make sure you are subscribed, okay? Only subs can win. But we're not done there. We're also giving away the signed LaDainian Tomlinson jersey to one of my members of my crew, the so important crew, man. You guys absolutely killed it this offseason. Thank you guys so much for all your support. To all the new crew members that have been joining in the last couple of weeks, you guys are all entered for this. All you got to do is be a member of the crew. We'll be drawing a name at random. Guys, thank you again so much. Again, hopefully these go to a good home. This one is hot. And with that, let's get into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. The Chargers at Seahawks game preview, the battle of the backups. We're going to see a lot of backups in this game, guys. And to do this, I think we're going to do this show a little bit different today, okay? We're going to be taking a look at this roster here and just kind of breaking down the position battles that we're likely to see, the kind of guys that we're hoping to make the team, the players that have stood out to us, and the guys that we think has a leg up on the competition, okay? I know a lot of people are wondering, like, Director, what do you think about this game? Are the Chargers going to win? It is a preseason game, so the win doesn't matter as much, but if you guys want to know my opinion on that before we start breaking down some of the players, the Seahawks absolutely suck in the preseason, okay? They're a great team in the regular season, but I would say extremely conservative in the preseason. Of course, losing 20-7 to the Raiders and then 30-3 to the Broncos. It's time for the Chargers to close out the preseason for the Seattle Seahawks. I am more optimistic for a win in this scenario, so if that's one reason to tune in, definitely tune in for that. And taking a look at the roster and deconstructing some of the things we're going to see. Let's start here with the wide receivers, okay? And I'm going to be throwing some names out to you guys while we're showing some of these images here. But some of the guys to pay attention to in this first battle: Jalen Guyton, Tyron Johnson, Jason Moore, KJ Hill, Joshua Palmer, Michael Bandy, who kind of stood out last week, and of course Joe Reed and John Hurst. Now, a couple of the guys that really do stand out to me, we do have Tyron Johnson on the screen right now. It's because Tyron Johnson got a lot more playing time last week than a lot of us maybe expected. Now, Tyron Johnson had a stupendous camp. Let's not get that wrong. Tyron Johnson was definitely one of those standout dudes when it came to Chargers camp. He made a lot of plays. Very, very impressive. What's kind of telling, though, of his situation was how long he played in last week's preseason game. I think I saw him on the field all the way up until quarter 3 or 4. Kind of insane. So it kind of tells you the situation, Tyron Johnson, what's going on with him. I do not think he is a cut candidate. Let's get that out of the way right now. But I do think there are probably other wide receivers climbing the depth chart, maybe moving him down a little bit. Maybe one of those guys might just be Joshua Palmer. And I know a lot of people are going to say, dude, that's crazy. Guyton and Johnson are secure, wide receiver 3 and 4 on this team. It's possible, but at the same time, I don't know if the wide receivers are going to be utilized in a very traditional wide receiver 3, 4, 5 role. I think we're going to see a healthy mix of Joshua Palmer and Tyron Johnson, Jalen Guyton throughout the season, using them in different situations. I would say the chain movers on this team, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, of course, Josh Palmer. You'll probably see those guys a lot. And then in special circumstances where we do need to target wide receivers out maybe a little bit deep, you will see a Jalen Guyton and Tyron Johnson on the field as well. So that's just my 2 cents on the situation. I think we will see more Josh Palmer than maybe a lot of us expected this season, but that does not mean that Tyron Johnson is not going to see a lot of targets as well. I think it's going to be a healthy mix of those 3 wide receivers, kind of technically filling the wide receiver 3 spot. And I would also expect a lot of Keenan Allen in the slot, maybe Josh Palmer in the slot, etc., etc. Next up, let's move on to, I think, the offensive lineman. Yeah, now this is one that I am extremely nervous about. If you guys are watching the live preseason game watch party or whatever last week, we did not see a lot of good stuff from this offensive line when it came to the depth pieces, right? And this is one of the things that I pointed out as an aspect of the team that needs a lot of cleaning up. It leaves a lot of concern for me as a fan, watching this offensive line absolutely disintegrate play after play. There are some highlights on this line, though. I would say that definitely Brendan Hamus has certainly stood out as one of the better rookies on this team as far as the offensive line is concerned. Of course, his competition being Rashawn Slater, who is absolutely stellar as well. But Brendan Hamus has certainly, I would say, earned maybe some more snaps this season if called upon as a backup. I think the starting 5 are pretty solidified. The only one that I'm kind of concerned about is maybe Oday Abushi, of which Brendan Hamus might actually take some snaps away from, because if we're talking honestly right now, the battle between Abushi and Hamus at this point, I think Hamus certainly does have the leg up. Right now on the screen, though, you are seeing Storm Norton, okay? Last week, combination of Storm Norton and Trey Pipkins was absolutely pitiful. I'm sorry, every single time pressure was getting through, it was certainly, I think, to the fault of one of these 2 players. Storm Norton, I would say the jury's still kind of out for me, but as far as Trey Pipkins is concerned, holy cow, man. We're hoping to see anything this week. I need to see some signs of life from Trey Pipkins, because right now, at least to me, if we're talking bold takes, he might be a surprise cut candidate by the end of things. But when all is said and done, maybe Trey Pipkins doesn't even make this team. It was absolutely dreadful. And maybe Trey Pipkins was not as bad as a lot of us maybe perceived. We saw the PFF scores after the game a couple of days later, and he certainly wasn't the worst player on the team, but still, when it comes to that position, the importance of that position, I would expect to see maybe a little bit more consistency in that front. Outside of that, we do have other backups like Tyree St. Louis, Nate Gilman, Darius Harper, Ryan Hunter. Those guys, it's kind of, again, up in the air. The only backups that I truly think that are going to make the team at this point, Scott Questenberry, maybe Storm Norton, of course, Brendan Hamus. Everybody else is kind of up in the air, but the Chargers certainly do need to address the depth at the offensive line immediately. I'm even to the point where I'm thinking, Chargers, we got some money in our back pocket. Let's go look maybe for a more consistent backup at our blind side, man. That's a super important position on that line, and I don't know if I'm super confident in Trey Pipkins as of right now. I hate to say it, but it doesn't look good for him right now. Next up, let's talk a little bit about the tight ends. Now, there's actually a lot of tight ends on this roster right now that are reliable cut candidates at this point. Of course, you got your top 3 in Jared Cook, Donald Parham, and Trey McKitty, I would say, is certainly going to make the roster as a rookie. Outside of that, you got guys like Stephen Anderson, Matt Sokol, and then Hunter Kampenmoyer. Like, these are guys that are certainly fighting for a roster spot. I think this one's pretty cut and dry to me, honestly. Jared Cook, Donald Parham, Trey McKitty are going to make the roster. I think it's a strong possibility that Stephen Anderson does as well. He's shown a lot of flashes even in season last year as being a pretty reliable backup. Him and Donald Parham certainly stepped up when Hunter Henry went down. I would think that he's probably going to make the roster. As for guys like Kampenmoyer and Sokol, I would maybe guess that these guys might get cut. Okay. Next up, let's talk a little bit about quarterback. Now, I don't want to talk your guys' ear off too much about quarterback, okay? We talked a lot about it in my last game report or whatever for last week's preseason game. The battle for QB2 is certainly alive, and there's a lot of evidence to suggest that it's more complicated than a lot of us think. But I think, again, it might be more cut and dry than we think. I think Easton Stick's going to have to put up a pretty stellar performance in order to stand apart once again. Maybe consider the Chargers in rostering 3 quarterbacks, which I don't know if is a huge possibility at this point. But between him and Chase Daniel, I think most Chargers fans would agree that Easton Stick has definitely stood apart as the better quarterback this offseason, certainly in preseason. However, again, without talking your guys' ears off about this, Chase Daniel is brought in for a reason by the Chargers. Chase Daniel, of course, very familiar with the Joe Lombardi offense, ran in New Orleans, and I'm certain that the Chargers brought him on to help Justin Herbert and mentor Justin Herbert in the way of this new offense. He has something to offer Justin Herbert on the sidelines, whereas Easton Stick probably does not. So unfortunately, I'm really hoping I'm wrong here, but unfortunately, I think Easton Stick might be a practice squad candidate. I'm hoping not, and I think Chase Daniel might be taking the position of quarterback too. But pay attention, maybe Easton Stick goes out there and does something absolutely stellar and earns himself a roster spot. That's a pretty important one to pay attention to come Sunday, all right? Next up, let's talk a little bit about Joshua Kelly. Now, and the running backs, okay? So Joshua Kelly, who we got back there? We got Justin Jackson, Joshua Kelly, Larry Roundtree, Darius Bradwell, okay? Now, Darius Bradwell's always been a guy to me that's going to be a very consistent participant in the practice squad. I think he's really good, and he could certainly stand out this week and make something happen to make the 53. But at the same time, he's kind of been that in and out of the practice squad guy for a very long time for the Chargers. Outside of that, this is going to be a very important position battle for the Chargers in this upcoming game. Justin Jackson, I would say, is safer to make the roster, but at the same time, he's not immortal to being cut, right? His injury concerns, which definitely lingered into this preseason, could be grounds for the Chargers to decide to part ways with him. I'm hoping not, because again, he's the second most talented running back on this roster, in my opinion, but the injuries could warrant a decision leaning that way. However, Joshua Kelly versus Larry Roundtree, the Chargers can only roster so many players, and I don't know if you want to roster too many running backs at this point. I would say Larry Roundtree is a solid, he's going to make the team. He's a rookie. He's been standing out in preseason. He's been looking really good. Joshua Kelly, to me, is the most likely cut candidate if he can't figure anything out right now, okay? Joshua Kelly, unfortunately, only his second year in the league. Had a lot of faith in him last season. He had the worst performance out of all running backs last season. He's not been helping his case this offseason either, especially in these preseason games. It just seems like every time he's on the field, he's not really doing much of anything. And unfortunately for Joshua Kelly, I think that's going to force him out of this roster sooner than later. So I'm going to predict maybe that Austin Eckler, Justin Jackson, and Larry Roundtree make the roster as far as running back. There's certainly room, I would say, for Joshua Kelly, but if it's between Joshua Kelly and Darius Bradwell even, I think I'd be leaning Darius Bradwell at this point, okay? Now let's get into the defense a little bit, right? The Chargers' defense has certainly been a highlight of these preseason games. The Chargers certainly not allowing too many points, looking very good on defense. Even with our depth positions and depth pieces, I think this is where things get a lot more complicated for our coaching staff. There's been a lot of really good players on defense, and it's certainly going to be difficult to decide who stays and who goes. Let's start at edge, right? Starting at edge, of course, we got guys that locked the roster: Joey Bosa, Jenna Nwosu, Kyler Fackrell, Chris Rumph, yada, yada, yada. A few guys to pay attention to: Amik Egbul, Jesse Lemonnier, I think that's how you say it. Lemonnier. I'm going to say life gives you lemons, Jesse Lemonnier. That didn't make any sense. He's going to be one of those guys that you're definitely looking at to maybe fight for a roster spot. He had a pretty good week last week. I would say he had a bunch of pressures. He got the sack in there, but I do also think that the penalty by him did lead to the loss for the Chargers as well. So give a little, take a little. I think he's got a good shot at making the roster. As for Egbul, or is it Egbule? I don't know, man. Egbule, Lemonnier. These guys definitely have to put up something this week, I think, because there's a lot of really good edge players on this team right now. Between Uchenna, Rumph, Bosa, Fackrell, it's really kind of becoming crowded back there as far as depth for the edge position. So the Chargers at edge probably look a little bit better than I had predicted before the preseason started. I was a little bit worried after losing Melvin Ingram, but right now people have been stepping up, players have been stepping up, and it feels a lot better going into the season now, having seen the performances from the backups. Talking a little bit about the defensive line. To the defensive line, we got Braden Fayoko in here, one of my favorite players last season during Hard Knocks, this season as well. He's certainly been putting up a good performance. There's a lot of backups in the defensive line this year, right? Because we've got 3 different positions to break down: nose tackle, left, and right end. And there's a lot of really good players, I would say, that have been stepping up. Forrest Merrill has definitely been one of my favorites. He certainly fits the architecture of this team. Cortez Broughton, Willie Yardberry, certainly Braden Fayoko, Christian Covington. A lot of guys fighting for spots here. So pay attention to how many snaps these guys get, how much of an impact they have from the interior line. And honestly, it's anybody's game. There's a lot of good talent right there. When it comes down to it, whoever gets cut, I'm going to be a little bit bummed about, because all these guys have been looking pretty stellar in camp, and then especially stellar when it comes to the preseason games. So one thing I'll say that might swing a decision for the coaching staff is their efficiency versus the run game, right? The last couple of weeks, if you're going to give one solid criticism for the Chargers, has been the interior pressure has been really good, but the run stopping has not been that good. The run defense has not been that good. So let's say a Braden Fayoko stands out a little bit more than a Yardberry for run defense. Maybe that swings the position to him a little bit more, or vice versa. You really never know. So defensive line, I feel really good about. I think whoever we decide, we're going to be in a good spot, right? Next up, only a few more positions here, guys. Let's talk about Nick Neiman and the linebackers, specifically the inside linebackers. These guys have been absolutely stellar. Of course, we've got a pretty stacked roster when it comes to the interior linebackers right now. Kenneth Murray, Drew Tranquil, Kazir White. All these guys are going to be big impact players for the Chargers. Outside of that, you got Nick Neiman, Cole Christensen, Amin Ogbongbemiga, and of course, Nate Evans as well. A couple of guys back there I'm certainly looking to make maybe some plays during this game. Ogbong has certainly stood out as a really good, I would say, run defending linebacker. As for coverage, he's certainly struggled. Nick Neiman has been nothing but a consistent tackling machine, so I'm going to say that he's definitely going to be making the team. Also pay attention to Cole Christensen, I think number 50 on this team, and Nate Evans to make some plays as well. But again, just like the interior defensive line, the linebackers looking really solid for the Chargers right now. Last couple here, man. We got the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks, I would say, have been a surprise to me as well. The corners at depth have been making some plays, right? Of course, our starting 3 in Davis and CHJ, and of course, Asante Samuel Jr. Those guys have been solid. They're going to be great this season. Outside of that, Brandon Faison has been looking pretty good. Tavon Campbell, Devontae Vaughn, Kemen Hall, John Brannon, KJ Sells. There's been a lot of guys out there making plays. So again, it's really going to come down to the nitpickingness of this defense. I feel a lot of their success does come through the Brandon Staley system. However, there's going to be guys that stand out talent-wise. I think Faison and Campbell are going to make the team. And then one of these 4 guys, Hall, Brannon, Sales, Vaughn, might make the team too. Of course, Ryan Smith as well. So a lot of guys in the mix here. But again, I'm feeling really good. The whole defense, I'm actually feeling very confident in. And whoever makes the team, I'm going to feel very confident in as well. As for safety, Chargers look pretty good. I would have liked to see more depth added over the offseason, but we got Nasir Adderley, we got Derwin James, 2 solid dudes. But Mark Webb, Alohi Gilman, and Ben DeLuca, okay, those are the only 3 guys fighting for a spot here, so pay attention to how many snaps these guys are getting, how efficient they are in the game. Mark Webb's going to make the team. I think Alohi Gilman's going to make the team. I think it's Ben DeLuca, the guy out there that's going to have to make some plays to stand out. I think he's going to be the man out, the odd man out. He might even make the practice squad for the Chargers. Of course, undrafted free agent, but very cut and dry when it comes to the safeties, okay? The last position battle that's got a lot of Chargers fans talking right now. We got a nice zoomed-in picture on number 16. If you guys don't know who that is Tristan Vizcaino. I'm trying to get back into the rhythm of saying his name right. Vizcaino. Karen, if you're out there for my live stream, shout out to you. You know who you are. Help me figure out how to pronounce his name. Vizcaino versus Michael Badgley, right? The battle of the kickers. We saw a very impressive kick last week from Michael Badgley, one of the few very big highlights from that game. That certainly threw a wrench in the plans of Tristan Vizcaino, okay? I feel like the position battle is still there. Vizcaino has shown some potential. I think Chargers fans have definitely seen it. He's got talent, but at the same time, I think Michael Badgley, at least for me, it's been kind of like a horse race, right? You know, there's one going a little bit ahead, and then the other one pulls ahead, and vice versa. I feel like at this point right now, in this moment of time, Michael Badgley certainly has the edge over Vizcaino. That could certainly change this week. We need to see more reps. And again, there's a lot of the stuff that go on behind the scenes when it comes to the special teams, right? The kick hang time, what we see in practice, the consistency that they're seeing from the kickers. There's a lot that's put into factor when it comes to choosing your kicker on an NFL squad. So to me, as an outsider, as a Chargers fan, I think Badgley has the edge right now. Vizcaino could certainly pull ahead, though, at any time. I don't know, man. As far as the kicker battle goes, I am not super confident in either one right now. I was hoping the Chargers maybe go add another dude. Of course, we did have the other guy, Kessman, in here for a while, but he got cut a ways back. So hopefully, Badgley figures it out or Vizcaino figures it out. I'll have to wait and see from there. Well, guys, in the comment section below, let me know some of the position battles that you are most interested in seeing. I'm going to say right now that the one I'm most interested in seeing right now is definitely that interior defensive line, right? There's a lot of really good players on there, certainly a lot of positions on defense that I'm excited to see unfold in this game, but I'm certainly excited to see which interior defender makes the cut for the Chargers and maybe which one makes the practice squad or even gets cut for the Bolts as well. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time. If you did like this content, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll catch you in this week's game. Remember to hit us up in the live stream for the upcoming game. Will be a ton of Chargers fans in here. It'll be a good time. We'll see you next time. And as always, bolt up and stay frosty.